Okay, so today what we're going to do is continue looking at Photoshop. So you'll remember from last lesson that we were looking at digital data and all of the different ways that digital data can be stored, or that data can be stored in the computer. It needs to be digitized, so the analog world around us needs to be digitized before we can store things in the computer. And one way we can edit that digital data is using Photoshop. That allows us to edit bitmap images. And so bitmap images are images where the image has been broken up into dots, and the color of each of those dots is stored by assigning a number or a palette to that particular dot, and that dot is called a pixel. Okay, so what we're going to do now is have a go with an image we've used before. So I'm going to open up my image that I had last lesson, and I'm going to quickly run through the tools that we used last lesson. So the first one in the selection, so under the magic wand tool, you'll remember there's the magic wand, and that allows you to select areas. You can see that just by clicking it's made an attempt at selecting. And then we've got our toolbar across the top. We can add to that selection, so you can see on my image here it's missed part of my neck. So if I use the zoom tool down here, then I can zoom in on that area, and then I can select the magic wand tool again and say add to selection, and I'm able to select within that area, and it's able to refine that selection and improve on it. And so I can select that, and you'll notice that when I press delete, it's going to ask me what color it wants to replace that with. That's because at the moment we're editing the background of the image. So I'm going to cancel that, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply double click on the background and make that a layer. So you'll remember last lesson we talked about layers can be considered a whole lot of overhead transparencies that are sitting on top of each other, and you can create as many layers as you like. So I'm going to just name this layer face, and you can see now that when I delete that layer, it's actually going to go to transparent. And you can also see I've actually missed a bit down the right hand side, so I'm going to select that and redelete. And so now that's got rid of the background and it's just leaving my face. Now I'm going to select the areas of my shirt and add that in. So I can simply go around and select all of these areas just by plussing them. And when you're kind of happy, you can then press delete and you'll get a better idea of what areas need to be selected. And you can also tidy that up just by using the eraser tool. So if you come over here and select the eraser, that's way too big at the moment, so let's drop the eraser size down a bit. Oh, and I should get rid of the selection, so select, deselect, and now I can erase those tiny bits there and just tidy up the neck a little bit, and also delete these large areas down the bottom. And so that's going to get you to the point where you just have a face. Now you can start to play around with some other tools. So you'll remember last week we looked at the burn tool. So the burn tool is hidden in here under the dodge tool. Okay, you remember if it's got a little arrow, then it means there's extra tools hidden underneath, and so you can then choose the burn tool. And the burn tool will allow me to do things like give myself a black eye, like that, and so it's burning that area of the image. You can also play around with the hardness of the brush and the size of the brush. You can see I've probably given myself too big a bruise, and so that's going to mean that I could have gone with a smaller brush and given myself a more pronounced area there. You can also use the Paintbrush tool, so that's up here, and if you wanted, at the moment you can see I'm painting with a very funny shaped brush, so you can come up and change the shape of your brush to choose a different, let's just go with a round brush, soft round, and so then you can change the size, and you can play around with that to actually paint on your lips and things. So if I change the color to a pink or a purple, then I can play around with the paintbrush tool. Oh, am I still in eraser? I am still in eraser, so let's undo that. Go back to my paintbrush tool, try again, choose the round brush, and 306, I think it was 30 was probably about right. nope, that's too big. 10. And you can play around with the brush. Now I'm not going to do this very accurately for the sake of time. Okay, so you can paint over there. I probably should have gone much smaller and zoomed in and been much more accurate. Now what I want to show you today is you can see all of this is happening on layer number 1. If you want to, you can add extra layers, which puts things on top of that. But today I want you to have a look at the filters, and we're going to use a filter called the Liquify Filter. What the Liquify Filter allows you to do is change the shape of objects. So that's going to take my image and open it up in the Liquify tool. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to come down here to the Bloat Tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to increase the size of my eyes. Now you can see the brush once again is way too large, so I'm going to reduce the size of my brush about to, that's 8, so I'm going to go to about 20, which is just a little bit bigger than my eye. So let's try 25. Okay, you select a brush tool, and what I'm going to do is I'm now going to bloat that. So bloat means to increase the size, and you can see when I use the bloat tool and I click, it's actually bloating the eye, making the eyes pop out. You've also got another tool here called the pucker tool. So if I wanted to reduce the size of my nose, then I'd get a brush just a little bit larger than my nose, and if you pucker, then that sucks that shape in. Same thing, you can play around with that on your ears and so on, so the different areas of your face. And then you've got this fun tool up the top, which is called the forward warp tool. Once again, you'll need to select the size of your brush appropriately. The forward warp allows you to push the entire image in a direction. So if I start here with a large brush and I simply click and then I push, you can see it's grabbing the entire image and it's warping that image. So I've probably got the brush too large at the moment to play around with it to make it look realistic, but you can see I'm able to grab that entire image and change the way that it's shaped. Okay, I'm warping the image. So that's our warp tool here. You've also got the pucker tool and the bloat tool I've shown you. The twirl tool is going to grab your image and send it in a clockwise direction or an anti-clockwise, depending on the options you choose over here. So let's grab my nose and twist it. So we're going to reduce the size of my brush again, and I think that was 25 I needed for the nose. And if I now warp that, you can see it's grabbing it and it's twisting it. So these tools here are all inside of the filters and the Liquify tool. Once you're happy with your changes, you can obviously use Control-Z to undo the last change, or Control-Alt-Z to undo a number of change. Once you're happy with your changes, you can say OK, and those changes are then brought back into your main image where you can continue to use the other tools to edit that. So that's a reminder of the tools we've looked at. We've used our selection tools, we've used our brush tool, I've shown you the burn tool and the zoom tool, and today we've gone into the filter gallery and we've said we want to liquify our image. Okay, so with your image, liquify that. Remember, we're making a clown face, so you want your face to be still able to be seen as a face, but we're going to resize this into a 32 pixel by 32 pixel image, and that's going to bounce around the screen and be the object that the user has to click on. Okay,